Welcome to Frick Impact Academy in East Oakland, California, home of the Gladiators.
Now watch me nay nay. Okay. Now watch me whip, whip. Watch me nay nay. Why me do it? Now watch me whip. Kill it. Watch me nay nay. Oh.
In this video, we will be using a series of interviews from staff, teachers, and students in order to further understand the use of technology in an urban school. We will be focusing on Frick Impact Academy in East Oakland, California, to see if we, as teachers, use technology to our best of our capabilities. Can you please tell us your name?
Joel Thompson. I teach math and science to newcomer students.
My name is Elsa Varela and I teach newcomers.
I am Jamie Lally. I am the community school manager here at Frick Impact Academy. So, community school manager really supports programs and services for our families. So, it's based on the needs of the students, but it's either bringing to the campus physically or creating relationships and partnerships into the community that meet the needs of our families.
Newcomers are students who come from other countries and they're learning English as a second language. Well, we have student computers or Chromebooks. I use Google Documents with them. I also have a projector, an Elmo, in my classroom that I'm constantly using in the class because my students need a lot of visuals. And I use my computer a lot in class to project things too.
I use a fair amount of technology. I use computers a fair amount to help with the language barrier in my classroom because I don't speak fluent Spanish and almost all my students are Spanish speakers and none of them or few of them speak English fluently. So I have a class set of Chromebooks, which are computers that can do most of what normal computers can do. And then I let kids use their cell phones a lot for translation and as calculators.
I think how much technology teachers use, I think they use a lot. I think it's based on access and availability. So at our school, we actually have a lot of access to teacher level technology. Most teachers have a Promethean board. Teachers were given an iPad. Most teachers have a Chromebook device or the availability just for them. And that's just for their use in the classroom, which is significant when I've toured other schools and I'm like, wow, they don't have a smart board. So we are one-to-one for computing with the Chromebooks, which is great. So you'll see carts in different places in a classroom. So most classrooms have one. And then you will also see in other spaces that technology exists. But in addition to that level of technology, which tends to be like very, very academically focused, there's other areas where you see technology use. Our music program is a great example. So there's technology in and around musical instruments that are, electronic and not just percussion or strings or woodwind based. There's also technology that exists for music production that's completely outside of just like a Chromebook to like complete an assignment. There's also technology and around like photography, like our principal purchased a really nice camera, but you'll notice that very often it's the students who are using it, and so they're learning how to use focus and light and all of those things to document the work that they're doing. Another space for technology is in like our maker spaces, and so we have a couple of 3D printers here on the school site. So there's other access points outside of just a Chromebook, which is like one-to-one computing.
How much technology do you use in class? Like how many computers? Do you use it a lot in class?
Yeah, a lot.
How many times a day do you think you use computers or technology at school?
Around every day.
In a day, I think I use computers in most of my classrooms. So a day, probably 15 to 20 times.
To be honest, like, especially in the morning time the teacher comes in, I'll say for like a whole school day.
I don't think it's equitable because the majority of my students do not own a computer, and also many of them don't have internet at home. So if I assign any homework to do in the computer, they're not going to be able to do it.
I think it can be equitable in our site because we're one-to-one, we have Wi-Fi everywhere. I think the moment it leaves our site, it instantly becomes inequitable because we are making the assumption that families have Wi-Fi at home. Very often we don't. That's why our school, we could offer students low-cost Wi-Fi. Like we're one of the schools that's like $10 per month because most folks are accessing Wi-Fi through a device like this. And if you don't have a unlimited data plan, it becomes cost. But they usually are devices like this versus maybe a laptop. So you get home, let's say for our students who are like housing insecure or they just transitioned to coming to this country, they don't have these devices. So we're like, oh, do this online. It doesn't necessarily make sense. Soft serving in a classroom, who has internet at home that's not on a phone or a tablet? Most students did not raise their hand. So they don't have like anyone can connect with this device. It's the device connecting out based on data plans.
I think that having to use technology is not equitable because students with more money are much more prepared to show their mastery by using technology because they're much more literate when using digital technology like computers or phones. But it's extremely equitable to use technology and teach it, to me, because technological literacy and digital literacy will be necessary for all of our students going forward because our world is only going to get more digitized. So for example, for my students who arrived this year some of them arrived from pretty remote areas in Guatemala especially and had never used a computer before. They had only used cell phones to access the internet. So to me it's very important from an equity standpoint to teach those students how to use a computer and how to use other digital technology and eliminate that literacy gap when it comes to digital literacy. In terms of programs, I use ST Math. I use an interactive math practice program on the website, Common Core Sheets. And then I use Duolingo occasionally if I really have to fill up time.
It's a lot of money on programs. Some are paid for by the site and some are district owned. So you gotta think everything has a user agreement. Every license or seat cost. Well, students have access to Aries, but their information is held there and we're paying for it. And that they all like kind of talk or don't really talk, but they all have information about a kid. Students also can access like the testing databases, SRI, SMI. We're doing the California Healthy Kids Survey. They're able to use that. That's out of West Ed. They probably have a back-end person who does that. There's also programs like Jupiter Grades, which we pay for as a site. So that's a grading system. You can do testing in there. There's parent communication tools. That was Jupiter. AR, Accelerated Reader. They can take literacy quizzes. That's what we pay for as a school. There is a behavior tracking system, Hero, which we pay for. And the students have access to log into all of those to track their own success. We also make use of our Google suite of apps. So Google Classroom is a big one where assignments are happening back and forth.
We use Google Documents. We use some programs. Last year we had Achieve 3000, which was a great program, but it was too expensive.
Do you know how much it was?
I'm not sure, but I know that we couldn't pay for it this year. We also use Jupiter for grades, and then we use Hero. just to keep track of, student behavior and that type of thing.
With so much technology in our classrooms and so many programs that we use, I began to wonder, are we properly being trained to use the technology to the best of their ability? And if we aren't, then how is this helpful to our students who use technology every day if their teachers are not being trained properly to use all this technology? So I had to ask, are we being trained properly?
Um, we have been trained in some of these programs, but many other ones we just kind of learn them on our own. The other problem that I think we have is that when anything breaks down, it's very difficult to repair. Like I had an issue with my projector, and I finally was able to fix it just by pushing buttons and moving things around. It was, a problem, and then it broke down again, and I haven't been able to fix it, so I'm using an all projector now. So if we're gonna have technology, we have to have, people that can come and fix, those problems.
So you were using your smart board.
Yes.
Do you believe that you are using your smart board to the best of its ability?
No,
Why is that?
because I haven't been fully trained on how to use it.
Okay. Hey, thank you so much, Mr. Riley.
You're welcome.
Absolutely not. I've never received any training in the technology that I use, and I would appreciate it. And especially, I would appreciate some training in just how to teach kids how to use computers, because as I mentioned, many of my kids have never used a computer before. So I would love to get training in how to teach, how do you enter in a website in the bar and go to it? Because every time we need to go to even a tiny URL link, which is intentionally changed to be easier to enter, I spend 5 or 10 minutes going around the classroom helping kid after kid access that website. And I've tried to teach them how to do it better, but I don't know how to teach that. So I'd love some training in how to teach basic digital and computer literacy.
What about your smart board and all of that you have in your classroom?
Did I receive training in that?
Mhm.
No.
And did you learn on your own, or?
Learned it on my own, and honestly I think I just do what I saw my teachers do growing up, because when I was in high school, I did have teachers who had smart boards, or I had teachers who had document cameras, and so I think I just basically do what I saw them doing.
No, I think there's a lot of work to be done. Very often, teachers, it might be here's your access, and look at the help document. I've been guilty of that because I tend to send out those login codes and those help documents. But the time to sit down with the teacher and here's how you set it up. Here's how to maneuver within it. Have you be more informed as a teacher? We don't always have the time for that. Sometimes it's simply to fulfill a task where it's testing. So it's just you're gonna use it one time, it's compliance related. So it's we might spend time on something that's big ticket, like SBAC testing. We're gonna probably spend some time in PD going over it. We use that once and it's done. But in terms of Hero, how do you use Hero besides putting information in? We a lot of times don't spend a lot of time on how teachers get information for themselves out of Hero to improve classroom culture. Mm-hmm. And I think there has to be space and time for that happen throughout the year, because if you support teachers throughout the year, then the expectation of using this technology is normed and the support around it is normed, and you're going to get increased usership.
So if teachers are not being properly trained to use the programs and the technology in their classroom, then maybe all this money that's being used for programs and smart boards and everything that a classroom is equipped with can be used to make technology equitable for students in and outside the classroom. Maybe we are misusing our school technology funds if we aren't trained properly.